You are sitting quietly and suddenly a memory appears. You did not invite it. You did not search for it. It simply arrived. A scene from years ago, a conversation, a moment you had almost forgotten. And for a brief second you experience something strange. If you did not choose the thought, where did it come from? This simple question reveals one of the deepest mysteries about the human mind. We experience thoughts as if we are actively producing them, yet many of them appear spontaneously, without effort, sometimes even against our will. You can try a small experiment right now. Decide to think of nothing for 10 seconds. The moment you attempt it, another thought will appear. A word, an image, a plan, a random idea. It slips into awareness almost like an uninvited guest. The strange part is that this happens constantly. Thousands of thoughts move through the mind every day, but very few of them feel deliberately created. Instead, they rise, linger for a moment, and fade away. Neuroscience suggests that this is not a flaw in the system. It is exactly how the brain was designed to work. Your brain is not a machine that waits for instructions from consciousness. It is a continuous activity generator. Even when you are resting, large networks in the brain remain highly active, producing associations, predictions, and simulations. One of the most important of these systems is known as the default mode network. The default mode network becomes active when the mind is not focused on an external task. When you are daydreaming, remembering the past, imagining the future, or simply letting your thoughts wander, this network is busy connecting ideas and experiences. It links memories with emotions, possibilities with past knowledge. In many ways, it acts like an internal storyteller, constantly weaving fragments of information into narratives. This constant background activity means the brain rarely becomes silent. Even when you believe you are doing nothing, the brain is reorganizing memories, predicting possible futures, and generating internal dialogue. The thoughts you notice are only the ones that cross a certain threshold of awareness. Beneath that threshold, countless other processes remain hidden. Think of consciousness like a spotlight on a dark stage. The stage is filled with actors preparing lines and movements, but only the characters illuminated by the spotlight become visible to the audience. Your conscious awareness works in a similar way. It highlights certain mental events while the majority remain backstage. When a particular thought becomes strong enough, the spotlight shifts toward it. Suddenly you become aware of it and interpret it as something you just thought. But in reality, the thought may have been forming for several seconds through unconscious processing before entering awareness. Psychologists often describe this process as associative thinking. One idea activates another related idea through networks of memory and meaning. For example, hearing a song might remind you of a place. The place reminds you of a person. The person reminds you of a conversation. None of these steps require conscious effort. The brain moves through the associations automatically. This associative architecture is extremely powerful. It allows humans to generate creativity, solve problems, and imagine possibilities far beyond immediate sensory input. Consider how creative insight often appears. A scientist struggles with a problem for days and then suddenly the solution appears while walking or showering. The mind was working in the background, forming new connections until a coherent idea emerged. The conscious mind did not construct the solution step by step, it received the result. Artists, writers, and inventors frequently describe this experience. Ideas arrive unexpectedly, sometimes feeling as if they came from somewhere outside themselves. In reality, the brain's associative networks had been quietly exploring combinations until something meaningful surfaced. This process also explains why certain thoughts feel intrusive. Because thoughts are generated automatically, not all of them align with your intentions or values. Sometimes a disturbing or irrational idea appears suddenly. Many people worry that such thoughts reveal something dark about their character. But psychological research suggests the opposite. Intrusive thoughts are extremely common precisely because the brain generates far more mental material than consciousness can filter. The presence of a thought does not mean you endorse it, it simply means your brain produced it. Understanding this can reduce the fear people attach to unwanted thoughts. The mind is not a perfect reflection of identity. It is a generator of possibilities. There is also a predictive element to thought generation. The brain constantly tries to anticipate what might happen next. It uses past experiences to simulate potential futures. These simulations appear as thoughts about upcoming events, worries about possible outcomes, or plans for action. From the brain's perspective, imagining the future is a survival tool. By mentally rehearsing scenarios, the brain prepares the body and behavior for real situations. However, the same mechanism can also produce excessive rumination. If the brain repeatedly predicts negative outcomes, it can generate loops of anxious thinking. The mind becomes trapped replaying possibilities that may never occur. Breaking these loops often requires redirecting attention. When you focus on an external task, the networks responsible for wandering thoughts become less active. The spotlight shifts away from internal simulations towards sensory input and action. Meditation practices are built on this principle. Instead of trying to stop thoughts completely, practitioners learn to observe them as temporary events passing through awareness. By noticing a thought without reacting to it, the mind gradually reduces its attachment to the stream. This reveals something important. Thoughts are not commands, they are mental events. Just as clouds pass across the sky without altering the sky itself, thoughts pass through consciousness without defining the observer. The feeling that every thought belongs to you is partly an illusion created by language. When a thought appears, the mind quickly labels it as my thought, but the mechanism that produced it operates automatically. You are not consciously assembling every sentence you think. Much of the structure emerges from patterns stored in memory. This becomes clear when you speak in conversation. Words flow rapidly, often faster than deliberate planning would allow. Your brain retrieves phrases, structures grammar, and predicts responses in real time. If you had to consciously design every word before speaking, conversation would slow to a crawl. Instead, the brain provides a stream of possible expressions, and consciousness selects or modifies them as needed. This partnership between unconscious generation and conscious evaluation is what allows human thought to move quickly while still maintaining coherence. The unconscious mind generates possibilities, consciousness reviews them, sometimes it accepts them, sometimes it rejects them, sometimes it reshapes them into something new. In this sense, thinking is less like writing a sentence and more like editing a draft that is constantly appearing. The deeper mystery is why this process feels unified at all. Millions of neurons firing across multiple networks somehow produce a single flowing experience of thought. There is no central location in the brain where the self sits observing everything. Instead, the sense of self emerges from the coordination of many systems working together. Memory provides continuity, emotion provides tone, language provides structure. When these systems synchronize, they create the experience of a stable inner voice. But beneath that voice lies a far more complex and dynamic process. The mind is not silent until you speak within it. It is already active, already generating possibilities, already exploring connections. Conscious awareness simply listens to the parts that rise above the noise, which leads to an unsettling but fascinating idea. The thoughts you notice may not be the ones you created. They may simply be the ones your brain decided were loud enough to hear.